Yo, what's going on, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. And today we are going to be test running Rosaria and looking at all of her abilities. Now Rosaria is interesting because she's the first new 4-star for quite a while now, but she's also one of the few 4-stars in the game that can pretty viably be your main DPS. Plus, she's got some other options that you can make her into a support, so I think overall she's going to be a really good character, and probably if you don't have Child, you might want to be summoning on this banner, just because the things that you can get from it, like Fischl and Rosaria, and if you do get Child, they can all be really useful for you, so I don't think there's much bad about the current banner, except maybe Barbara, because everyone has a Barbara. But let's go ahead and start talking about what Rosaria does. Now, Rosaria is a cryo spear user, so she doesn't really have a special in her regular attacks. I believe that maybe her attacks, we'll have to take a look at it, but I'm pretty sure they're a little bit different than some of the other spear users. They might be more similar to Hu Tao, because I know that a lot of the spear users have pretty unique attack patterns, and hers might not be quite as quick as someone like a Zhang Ling. But yeah, pretty basic, just regular attack combo, regular charge attack, and regular plunging attack. Nothing really special in there. But when we move to her first ability, we have Ravaging Confession, and she shifts her position to appear behind an opponent and then stabs and slashes them with cryo damage. This ability cannot go behind opponents of larger build. I'm not quite sure how large of build large is, because I'm pretty sure it works on like the big hilly churls with the shields and the axes. I'm not sure if it works on the like lava churls, the guys who like build up the stone shields or the ice shields. I'm not sure if it works on those guys, but I'm sure that maybe someone knows. And then moving on to her elemental burst, we have Rites of Termination. This one, she's going to swing around herself and it's going to deal cryo damage, but then she's going to drop an ice lance in the middle that is going to radiate cryo damage for a total of 8 seconds, but you can also increase this time with one of her constellations. But this is what's going to make her a really good support, because much like how you would use Ganyu as a support, where you set up a really big zone where everyone's constantly going to take cryo damage, Rosaria is going to do the same thing. She'll apply cryo to a whole bunch of people and make it so your main DPS can constantly get elemental reactions, get that extra damage. Plus, if you have C6, then this skill actually becomes even better for certain main DPSs, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So, moving on to her other passive talents, whenever she uses Ravaging Confession, her skill, then her crit rate is going to increase by 12% for 5 seconds. Also, when we move on to her other passive talent, this is going to make her a slightly better support. It's going to make it so that when she casts her elemental burst, the crit rate of all of her party members, except for herself, is going to be increased by 15% of Rosaria's crit rate for 10 seconds. Crit rate bonus gain this way cannot exceed 15%. So pretty much what this means is you want, even if you have support Rosaria, you want it to have as high a possible crit rate as you can, because you want to be giving as much crit rate to your teammates as possible. So if you have 100%, you're going to give them 15%, right? But if you combine that with something like this Ravaging Confession passive talent, you want to hit someone from behind, and that's going to give you an extra 12%. So you don't quite need to get to 100%. You can use other ways to get you to 100% temporarily, and then you pop your elemental burst, and that's going to make sure that you give the maximum amount to your teammates as possible. Now, her final passive talent for the like little world talent is at night, so 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. She's going to increase the movement speed of your party by 10%. You can't use this in other places like domains and Spiral Abyss, but you can use it to get around the world slightly faster. Now, moving on to her constellations. Her constellations are actually quite good. A lot of them are really important depending on what you want to use her for. Now the first one, whenever she deals a critical hit, which we talked about, you're probably going to be building a lot on her anyways. Her attack speed is going to increase by 10%, and her normal attack damage increases by 10% for 4 seconds. So this is going to make her very good at being a main DPS, especially like a physical damage dealer, unless you are infusing her auto attacks with a certain element. So you could combine her with Chongyun pretty well if you want to play her as a cryo main DPS and then infuse her auto attacks with cryo. Then you could deal lots of cryo damage with all your auto attacks, having increased attack speed as well as just increased damage. And if you're running high crit, which you're probably going to want to, this is going to trigger and essentially just endlessly be up. So this is really good for her. Now moving on to the next one, it's just going to increase the duration of her Rites of Termination, her elemental burst, by 4 seconds. Originally it's 8 seconds. 4 seconds is 150% bonus on top of it. So it's just going to make her an even better support. So C1 is really good for making her a main DPS. C2 is really good for making her into an even better support. But C2 overall is going to be good no matter what. It's going to be good if she's a main DPS as well. Now, moving on to her third constellation, is just going to increase her skill level. And her fourth constellation is going to make it so if Ravaging Confession, her skill, crits, then it's going to generate 5 energy for her. It can only generate 5 energy once every time she casts the skill. So if you hit multiple people with it, it's not going to give her more than 5 energy. But this is pretty good, especially with high crit. It's just going to make it so you can spam your elemental burst more easily. And if she's a support, she comes out, you're going to want high crit on her as a support. So you'll use her elemental skill to position behind someone, get some more energy for her. Then you'll use your, that'll also give you extra crit rate. Then you'll use your elemental burst and get her out of there. And that's going to be really good for just making sure that she generates as much energy as she can in the little amount of time that she's actually out, but also good for her as a main DPS. So her Constellation 5 is just going to increase the level of her elemental burst. And Constellation 6 is the one that I said that's going to be good for certain main DPSs. Now it's going to make it so that Rites of Termination is going to decrease physical resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. So this means that she's really good in superconduct comps because superconduct reduces physical resistance. So if you lower their physical resistance by 20% and then you superconduct them as well, because she's already providing the cryo, so you just need someone to provide the electro, which can easily be done by a Beto ultimate. You can put the Beto ultimate on, you can put Rites of Termination down, and then your main DPS is going to be superconducting them. And if you're running them on a physical build, that's going to make you deal a lot more physical damage. So this skill is really good for being a support to specifically physical damage dealers. You can build most main DPSs as physical damage, except for, of course, Catalyst users and bow users. Are kind of mixed. It kind of depends on the bow user, because some bow users you actually want to charge attack, but like some you can auto attack, but Child doesn't work that well with this because obviously his auto attacks are always going to be infused with water. So it's important that if you are planning on using this, you use it with the right character. A character that is really good to take this is Razor. Razor, if you have Beto, not only is Beto going to make superconduct, but Razor also makes the superconduct with Rosaria by himself. But Beto just makes it easier that you actually hit everyone because Razor's abilities aren't as massive as Beto's ultimate is. So you can make it a lot easier for him to make sure that everyone's getting superconducted. But anyways, that is all of Rosaria's abilities. So now we're going to go ahead and get into the actual test run, and we can take a look at what gear she's got on. Probably I would assume they built her on Blizzard Strayer for this, but we'll see. What weapon she got? She got the Dragon Spine weapon, which is kind of what I expected. It makes her a better physical damage dealer. If you don't have any 5-star pole arms, this is probably going to be the one that you want to use, because of, especially if you're using her for a main DPS. If you're using her for a support, you might want an energy regen pole arm instead. But if you're using her as a main DPS of the physical variety, this is probably going to be your go-to spear because it'll give you physical damage bonus, as well as anyone who's affected by ice is going to take increased damage from this icicle that falls down every 10 seconds. And since she's going to be applying cryo to everyone, that means this is always going to be getting the extra 120 damage bonus. So this polearm is really good for her. Now, moving on to her artifacts. It looks like they're running her on physical damage, so Bloodstained Chivalry. After defeating an opponent... So your stamina for charge attacks is 0. Interesting. I wonder, they seem to want... I don't know why they went 4-piece Bloodstained Chivalry. I don't really see people use 4-piece ever. I feel like her charge attack is probably not what you're going to want to be using, but maybe I'm mistaken about that. So let's take a look at her auto attacks. They actually don't look anything like Hu Tao's. I was a little bit mistaken. They don't really look like anyone's. They're pretty unique. But here's her charge attack, much like most spear users. So I wonder, let's right after we defeat someone, we'll have 0 stamina cost. And Rosaria's all alone. It looks like she doesn't have any support, so. But here we'll start off with the skill. We'll appear behind them. And as long as we hit them in the back, we get the extra crit. Crit rate for, I can't remember exactly how long it is, like 5 seconds or something. So now we have the Ice Lance. So we'll get our increased crit rate first by teleporting behind someone, and then we'll drop the Ice Lance. And this is going to be really good against these cryo slimes. But just in general, you can see that it just keeps pulsing over and over and over. So it's going to make her a very valuable support. And we're just going to absolutely crush this poor little Abyss Mage. You could definitely see that on the physical damage build, she's going to struggle with things like the Abyss Mage's shield. But once she gets through it, she does a lot of damage. You can't run. And there we go. There is Rosaria. Her abilities aren't insane or anything. Her skill essentially just teleports her behind someone and hits them, which is cool and can be useful for repositioning, but you're mainly using it for the extra crit that you get, and just making sure that you're on top of your targets. You can hit them more easily. The Lance is going to give you really good support, as well as applying cryo to everyone, and this is going to help you spread things like superconduct everywhere. So if you're running her on physical damage build, then C6 is going to be really good for her, but you're going to want a electro support that can help her spread around that electro onto the cryo affected characters to get a superconduct bonus and then more physical damage in turn. I wonder how much physical damage she has right now, because with this we're at 25 plus the 62. I assume that they're probably running a physical damage cup. Yeah, so you can easily with the stuff that they have here, just by having a level 90 weapon instead of the level 80, and by having your cup fully leveled up, you're going to easily get this to like 150% physical damage, which can be a lot. Now, the reason that physical damage gets pumped up so much easier than ability damage, or like the elemental damage, is because elements tend to only come, or mostly only come from abilities, and abilities have much higher scalings on their damage than auto attacks do. But your auto attacks are going to be very potent if you build her with the right characters. So I think she's going to be a really good character, and I look forward to probably summoning for her tomorrow. I think we'll throw 50 summons her way. Seems like a good number, because if I get Child within the first 50 summons, I'm not going to be that upset about it. I should have enough, or at least I can easily get to enough without spending a whole lot of money to get the next character coming afterwards. Plus 50 summons is going to give me a decent chance of getting her. It's essentially, like, if we think about it, every 10 pull is about a 13%. No, it's more like 16% chance to get her, but then every other 10 pull is a 32% chance. So at 50, we'd be taking 116, 132, 116, 132, and then another 16. It seems like a pretty decent chance to get her. I'd say our odds of getting her are about like 50% at that rate. But either way, that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. Maybe you learned a little bit about Rosaria and how to use her. And I will see you in the next one when we try and summon for her.